Hey guys, it's Matt. Just a reminder before this starts, I forgot to mention, if you haven't been to my YouTube channel for a while, there was a video loaded on Free Voice Friday night, if you missed it. Much, much different than what follows, looking back at their past tricks and shenanigans. So check it out if you missed it. Thanks.
Hey guys, it's Matt. This is an in-depth look of exactly how I think they did this, and in looking at if I were to get close in determining exactly how they did this, it can be used to determine its motivations going forward. And as I mentioned in the last video, I have to be very careful in what I say, how I say it. Free speech is gone, and the population simply just allowed free speech to go away when they were told their entire lives that the First Amendment, the first of the Bill of Rights, was the most important thing in the world. Since they were told that from birth, they just let it go away, and nobody seems to care. But if we were to mention that to people, we're conspiracy theorists. So I have to be very careful in the way I present. For those that are insistent upon decoding my hat, it says "Give thanks." I know this is ridiculous, but going into May, but I'd rather be warm than to look cool with my bald head and shiver and shake. So it's if anybody's saying, well, we're here now, we know exactly what happened. You'll see. It's not that clear. It took me a while to get a sense as to what exactly is going on here. And do I have it 100% right? Do I know all their creepy means and mechanisms? No, of course not. But I think this is in the ballpark as to how they pulled this off. And it's probably a little bit different or a lot different than even what people at this channel might come up with. And looking back and studying it, there's only, I don't understand the creepy means and mechanisms and the reality buttons and levers. There is a supernatural factor, something a sort of subliminals, mind control, a download, things we don't understand. We can sniff, we get a sense of, but if anybody's saying to me, it is awfully hard to put the pieces together on exactly how they did this, not knowing, not even understanding. There's somebody behind the curtain. Toto's trying to pull back the curtain, but you don't know exactly what he's doing back there. He could be like the Wizard of Oz with buttons and levers, or he could be back there with a bottle of lube. I mean, we don't know what but we look there. This is about the best I can do in terms of putting the pieces together. Okay, so it's been a little over a year, and in terms of what they wanted to accomplish, well, that's easy because they pretty much did it. Okay, I'm sorry. What am I supposed to do? Just completely just make something up and say the world is exactly as we want it to be? I mean, what am I supposed to say? I'm here to. This is what I have to. They did. Okay, they're pretty close to the mark. Whatever initially was programmed into the Whopper computer, the Sentient World simulation, is pretty close to the mark. I'm sure there's certain pockets of places around the world or certain pockets in the United States where things are way off plan, but the big cities, the Northeast, California, Chicago, I mean, it's pretty close to the mark. So, in terms of the only way to do this is to get inside the head of, how do you do that, right? Of let's say of Melvin P. I mean, Melvin P. He's just a minion, just a puppet, he's just a cue card reader, a 3x5 card reader, clown, a joke, people like that. But I can't get in their head, but you can get in their head, so to speak, in studying for 10 years how they do business and what they've been able to do in the past and the means and the mechanisms that they have available. So anybody like Matt, get to it? Okay, I'll get to it. All right. Um, a an illness was used, of course, to get the world into a certain place of what it is now, and it is very close to the trajectory they want. An illness was used, something made a certain group of people sick. The part of the truth community that calls it a complete, can I say the word? Because putting these words together, the complete H with a coax, have an H with a coax and a smile. Those people, no. I mean, no. Everybody knows somebody that was affected, but that's all the system needed to move its agenda forward. I've had nurses have emailed me. They have there's no hospital's not overflowing. They have patients. A couple weeks here and there, kind of got a little busy. Last May or June, and couple respirators here and there. It's exactly, looking back, it is what kind of I said in the initial predictions. It's a 2 out of 10. It's not, the news presents a 10 out of 10. The part of the truth community that presents complete H with a coax and a smile, I don't know what, So the thousands upon thousands upon thousands of stories, including my own story, where my cousin diagnosed with it, test positive, very, very ill for 4 to 5 weeks, and a back end complication for a few more weeks. Supposedly fine now, in her early 40s. So what they did, guys, is there was something. Okay, maybe back in the, if they're having that backroom conversation, there is something we've lived through our lives. Whatever you believe about germ theory or what makes people ill, it's irrelevant. A flu season comes every year. Every year, a flu season comes. Every other year, I get it. Whatever it is, I don't want to have a big discussion on exosomes and this and that. It's not relevant to the point here. The point is, things in this world do make some people sick. Is that really pushing it? Is that a sellout conspiracy? Matt selling out from the truther community, saying things in this world make people sick. So they likely, if you're in the back room getting served by Jared, maybe they knew whatever the next flu season was a little nasty, or maybe they were partially responsible for putting a little cherry on top and making it nastier than normal. But looking back on it, it wasn't that much different than what you would consider to be a normal flu season. Okay? In fact, for the majority of the population, it was much better. But for those, or a percentage of those who got it, for some reason, the square peg was fit in the square hole, and they got rather ill. Certain groups were affected. So the point is, guys, they knew that a certain strain was coming, or whatever you consider a flu season, and maybe they made it a little bit nastier. But either way, it was used. Now they could have thrown a reality button and lever at it, like turning up the dial on a 5G or whatever. So the point of all of this is we're not going to know the means and the mechanism. The point of this, if you want to stick with me in this presentation, is the sentient world simulation that spits out of the Whopper computer. It knew, or it could predict human behavior down to a T. It knew that this certain amount of people need, in some way, for whatever reason, to get ill. Now, they knew exactly the amount they needed to reach because they reached it. And the idea is, well, my friend Tony, for example, he'll look around to his friends and most of his family, and he'll see, just like most of us, he'll see nobody's ill. I mean, he'll look around, look down his block. Excuse me. In 1918, when I listened to hours of the old people give their testimony, many of the older people that gave their testimony that lived through 1918, the Spanish, as a kid, said they looked down the block in a small town, and you could see, way back when, 10 houses on the left and 15 houses on the right, and they would be like, two houses down, Mary died. 8 houses down, Joe died. I mean, it was that, and we don't have anything like that now. But see, the Sentient World simulation, it was just enough. So, for example, Tony, I have that story about my cousin. This is how it did business. Tony knows one person, probably, that got very ill. And most people don't know anybody that died, but might know somebody. Uh, oh, um, his wife's brother's great aunt in a nursing home died, or something like that. They have one story, and those stories are easily traveled because of social media. Everybody knows, and the Sentient World Simulation or the Whopper knew, if you can just get one story that's inside the certain bubble of being close to home, then that will be enough for the way this population is today to push this thing forward. So if it's, Tony's relative heard of somebody that's in an Eskimo community in Nome, Alaska that got it and died. Well, that's not in the sphere. That's not close enough. Just close enough to home. Greg, my buddy that I can bounce anything off and has helped me over the years with my theories and things like that. We don't talk shop too much anymore. I talk to him, once or twice a week, but mostly about, I don't know, we'll complain about our visit out at Walmart or something. We don't talk too much serious reality buttons at lever shop anymore. But he, he's there for me if I ever need anything, of course. He has a cousin's brother in law, or his cousin, sorry, his cousin's married to a man who was 90 days hospitalization. 90 days. And if he wasn't an EMT, he thought they would have pulled the plug on him a long time. So now, is Greg then believing in everything the news presents? Of course not. This is Greg, but to everybody else in Greg's family, they have this one incident, just one incident. It was very, very horrific. I mean, person was a very big man, lost upwards at one point of 80 pounds. In and out of coma. I mean, so it's just this one event would be enough if you think it through. And the Sentient World simulation knows this, just enough to convince everybody in Greg's family that this is 100% legitimate the way the news presents it, because the one case was so horrific. Again, if you put Greg's family in that town in 1918 and you step out on your porch, and what they did again in 1918, they stepped out on the porch and they're like, yeah, that person died way down there. That person, oh, that Joe delivers the paper. His father died. They knew people down the block. Where if you put, my family or Greg's family, that example, we step off the porch, it was like, well, this whole row of homes here, nobody got sick, nobody, nothing, no big McD's, no big. Well, yeah, my cousin's husband way over there got. It's not the same at all. So it's a 2 out of 10, but see the main scheme was just to get one incident of a heavy major league illness close to a McD or a McD, just one incident inside everybody's sphere, and the sphere is very large because of social media. If without social media, I might not, my uncle in California, I might not ever see from him, talk to him, but I'll see it now. He's on social. I don't do social media. I'm just saying how most people operate. He's closer to you. Oh, he knows somebody down the block who was very sick and was this close to dying. Then that's then a case close to home that's inside your bubble. So, in the planning of it, they knew exactly what they would need, and they did it. And again, I don't mean to be if I'm getting close, I'm sorry to be a little repetitive, but if I'm getting close in figuring out how they did this, I'm thinking this through as I go as well. Maybe it's okay I repeat a few things a few times if I'm close, because it's kind of important in understanding it. So it's interesting how they made that bubble in people much larger because of social media, and they were just expert in as to just deliver enough that's in its Goldilocks reality. It's nothing anybody that sits, any just regular men and women that just sit down on the pot and then order out DoorDash. With Jordash jeans, nothing anybody regular men and women could accomplish unless they have some sort of, anybody's yelling at me, Matt, it is regular women like whoever George Bush and the Bushes and Cheney is the handler and whoever's above him, it is regular men and women, Matt, but they have a means, they have an ancient knowledge. Okay, then it's not regular men and women. Okay, if they have a means, an ancient knowledge, or a spellcraft with reality buttons and levers, then to me that qualifies as not regular men and women. So if you see what I mean, I don't mean it's if I say it's not regular men and women, there's some things going on here to accomplish this that are way outside of our perception. Either way, it's semantics. It doesn't matter. So then they continue to, and I think there was also some sort of a dial. I don't know if it's related to 5G. Just when they needed, if it wasn't as simple as camping on the back of a regular flu season, in my opinion, it wasn't as simple as camping on the back, saying this one's going to be nasty, and we're going to make it a little bit nastier, perhaps, or the Resident Evil Wuhan lab or whatever. So who knows? But I don't see that any flu season, once people start getting their vitamin D, again, whatever causes it. I don't want to be lectured about germ theory and exosomes, and I think this is what I do. I think I'm aware of all that. It's not my first rodeo, so I think sorry. So it's not enough just to camp onto a flu season, because it would have completely petered out in May of 2020. And nurses that emailed me, again, nobody's hospitals were overflowing, but there were cases, continual cases. So it was something other than a flu season. Just camping on that wouldn't have been enough. To me, there something we'll never truly understand. There was some sort of dial or lever here that could have been related to 5G, where it's almost like if they turned it up, it would create illness in a certain type of people. They created just enough illness through when people should be forgetting completely about illness. The summer, September in the Northeast, October is a beautiful month, but they kept people in the Northeast and California, in the big cities and the blue states, they kept them in the mask incredibly. And the only way to keep, even now, again, you go out to Wawa, everybody in a crowded Wawa is in a mask. And I mean everyone here outside Philadelphia. And the only way to do that, again, is to just have enough cases where people have a story of a guy that knows a guy, that the guy that knows a guy, the guys that knows a guy. So I don't think that lever or button, we'll probably never figure it out, but it could be related to 5G. Because just camping on the back of a regular flu season would not have been enough. And I don't want to go too far, guys, but it would be like, if they turn 5G goes out with a certain type of power, and maybe if they turn it up to 10, it can make some people sick. The way the theory went around that 1918 was partially about the introduction of radio waves and electricity and certain types of things in the electromagnetic spectrum. They could have a dial that they that they turned up. And if you want to get into this, is where the karma stuff comes in. I mean, if they, it's one thing to fool a population into a regular flu season comes and they just use them, manipulate them, play them, fool them into dooming themselves. But if these creeps actually turned up a dial of some kind, and obviously, guys, you know what I mean by that. It's just a means we don't understand to target, to create illness in certain pockets, so people would relate those stories. If they used a dial, I mean, this is just, to me, this is blatant breaking of the rules. The rules seem to be that they have to get human beings to doom themselves. So in my opinion, if when they do it directly, this is dooming themselves. All right, this is dooming themselves. If you back up far enough out of the snow globe and look down, do I have an understanding of how they would be breaking the rules or the contracts of what these creeps are designed here to do? They are here to play a role in this reality. But no, but it's in a similar sense of of the stories of most likely all true about Lyme disease. You want to talk about breaking the rules? I mean, if they were involved in planning or plotting that out, which is it's overwhelming, then again, you know, there's gonna I don't know what the price they're going to pay and how it would be paid, but something will be paid at some point for that. Um, and then somebody still yelling at me, and I can hear you. I can hear you right now yelling at me, and you might be right, saying, Matt, again, you've said it yourself. They're here to play the role of the creep. To play the role of the creep, they have to make it difficult on you. Your life has to be difficult so you accomplish certain things for yourself. They're not gonna if they didn't. They have to do these things. Man, what do you expect them to do? Just go wrap flower bouquets and send them out, and that's going to be their role? The role is going to be nasty. So Matt, stop talking about them paying the 100 million year karma price. Maybe it's up to us. Maybe if we think they should pay 100 million year karma price, they'll pay it. Maybe if we, convince ourselves that they're playing the role of a-hole because the role of a-hole is needed for us to advance, which it has helped us to advance. It absolutely has. If all 7-Eleven was, instead of all that craziness that woke us up and that insane asylum, and then afterwards Silver Beamer talking about they pulled it and they did it on purpose. If it wasn't for all that, we'd still be, if instead of the 7-Eleven job application, all they did on that day was send out flower bouquets to the country, we'd still be drifting through our fog. So I go back and forth on this, but you can see the benefit in it as well in terms of spiritual fulfillment. If this whole life is just about going through life as rosy as possible and waiting for the next woman to walk up to me with a jar of lube, then that might be wonderful for this experience, but it might not be wonderful for the next one outside of this snow globe. And the lessons for the next one, or whatever is outside the train stop here, is obviously more important than here. Although the mental image of people constantly walking around the corner with a jar of lube is very attractive to many people. I'm past that. That would have been attracted to me in my 20s, but I don't care about that stuff anymore. Sorry. Anyway, so you have them creating just enough incident where people are believing the news. And my father, for example, even though he looks down his neighborhood and he knows nobody in this very close circle that's ill, he believes every bit of the statistics on the news, whether they present hundreds of thousands of new cases or so many McDs, believes every bit of it, just because he's heard one or two stories. And should a human being behave like that? No. But the sentient world simulation knows at this point how the masses will behave. And even individuals, they have a replica, I'm sure, of you, me, and my father in the sentient world simulation. It looks the same, has the same social, it knows what he's going to do before he does. They're probably about there at this point. Maybe can't quite figure us out, but we've been played and used and manipulated as well. We're probably a little bit harder to predict. And I'm talking about just a segment of the truth community, like the segment that's here. Yeah, fine, we'll pat ourselves on the back, but there's many segments in the truth community, related to Q and things like that, where they know exactly what they're going to do. They're probably more predictable than the normie, but anyway. So then then you go into the summer of what I talked about, the summer of confusion, the spring and summer of confusion, and what that was all about was it was to create a very very big desire for the renting of the movie with Carl Weathers' Action Jacksonation, the summer of confusion, meaning even inside a certain state. Well, this high school is practicing for football, and we're not practicing for football, and we're practicing for field hockey. I mean, just at the high school levels, there's a mass confusion. How about then you spread it out across the entire society? We're practicing in masks, but Springford High School is not. So even inside just high schools, you have all this all over the place, and then it's community, it's state to state. Some states doing different things. Then you have Oh, we're told Pennsylvania residents can't drive into Delaware, and what are the rules for this, and what are the rules to fly, and these bars and restaurants are open over here, but there's a curfew in this state, and is doing something different, and lockdowns, and this and that. It's just, of course, who wants me to? If it was the summer of confusion with every politician or person in authority doing something a little bit different, governors saying different things. If anything were real, of course it would have been more organized right from the start. It was all intentional, the confusion in every way. It was all by design, and it was done again in a manner that beyond human ability or capability, beyond. Okay, it was a perfect amount of confusion. Even when I talk to my mother now, of course, she reads the Philadelphia Inquirer. She believes every bit of the world news with David Muir, the Plastic Man. Probably has the same grease in his hair that he had in it just a few years ago. Still looks at himself in the mirror all day once he goes home. David Muir, the Plastic Man, watches it every night, believes in every bit of it. But even now, when I talk to her on the phone, she'll be like, "Oh, this C thing, like I'm getting tired of this. Like I go to the dentist and everybody, and then my dentist had to cancel on me because there was a case and blah blah." So she's completely frustrated with it, and it was it. Everybody to a degree is very frustrated. Excuse me, is very frustrated with it. The normies are very frustrated with it. That doesn't mean they don't believe every bit of the statistics that the news presents. That doesn't mean they don't believe every bit of these measures are necessary to keep one safe for good health and safety. They believe in every bit of it, but they're frustrated. Like my mother, the frustration, that's the summer of confusion and the various rules and the bull crap that people had to go through. For example, Pam's sister with what happened in Hawaii. She was locked away in her hotel room for 5 days because a little bit of her paperwork was out of order. This is to create the confusion and the anger, and ultimately the desire for one to do anything to just make it go away. It's to push people to a point that they'll do anything. And what is that? Of course. So it's the 30, 40, 50 million people that really wouldn't have cared about renting the movie Action Jacksonation, but they're so frustrated, like just do it. Absolutely. Now just give it to me. Just do it. Just do it to me. So they got an extra 40, 50 million people to do it, or they will do it because of the frustration. Now, if anybody's saying, Matt, we've talked about in the past that they want a certain group of us not to do it, not to get it. And there's no question about that. It was the main thing that I got wrong in my initial prediction. The presentation of Melvin P, how he is now Zara leaves. Presentation of Melvin P and how he's meant to be a loathed figure in certain circles. How the news did talk about adverse effects in some areas. That once I realized that they actually want a certain percentage of us not to do it, that when I don't again my theories on that, or the way I see that, hasn't changed very much. And the amounts, I would say, if there's 300 million people in the United States, the amount of they don't want it to get it, I think has been pretty consistent. Probably, I don't know, what have I been saying? Probably about 15%. I think that's in line with, but that's kind of where I would think now. But I think that's what I said in the past. About 15%. If they make it a little bit more difficult, make it really really difficult on people, then maybe they wanted to get the amount of people renting the movie up to 90%, but 10% not doing it, that's still a lot of people. And if anybody's saying, well, why would they want if 300 million people, the 10%, that's 30 million people. Why would they want 30 million people not to? That wasn't a double three drop, guys. At some point, I'm going to say the word three. It's okay. I'm sensitive to this crap, and I'll talk about it some other time. some of the comments I get and things like that. Like, and sorry, um, why would they want 30 million people not to do it? And we've talked about that before, because if you have 30 million people that they can show the rest of the population, then one, they love the division. They love the neighbor hating neighbor and the brother hating brother. They live for that. They actually feed off that energy in some sort of loosh. But they then say, oh, oh no, we wanted to get rid of all this infrastructure. We would love to get rid of, they would love to get rid of all this infrastructure, the tracing, the testing, the passports, the show your phone to get into to the Wawa, show your phone to just walk outside. We'd love to get rid of all that, but see, everybody's not. That's the reason for this. Everybody's not V'd. You have these anti-V, real a-holes, and they're putting everyone at risk. So we have to maintain the infrastructure. We have to maintain all the medical passports, and we have to do all this because these guys won't do it. See, if they would just do it, we just go back to life as normal. So this is obviously what the role that the non V. Does that mean we should get the V? No, it doesn't mean. Just saying that they know how many people are not going to get the V by the way they push the stress and confusion, and push the adverse effects. They can get the number per the Sentient World Simulation Whopper computer. They can get the number where they want it, pretty much, in terms of who's going to get. They know this hardcore group inside the truth community like us that are going to do everything in our power, till our dying day, not to get it unless we're threatened to be kicked out of our job and there's 2 hungry kids at home. I mean, that doesn't get you to 30 million people. That's the hardcore group inside the truth community, people that watch videos like this. I'm not saying just my channel, other channels. We're looking at, in the United States, we're looking at 50, 100,000 people total have the type of mindset. This is a percentage of a percentage of a percentage. Have the mindset to see things the way we do. We're a tiny, tiny group. So, by the way they manage the confusion, if they want more people to not get it, then they just turn up a few stories about adverse effects, or they put out a story about a J&J, Johnson & Johnson issue. That by itself would inspire 1 million people not to do it. Or what's this? It was pulled for health reasons. So they can massage over here, massage over there, and get the number exactly where they want it. And because they've already run it through the Sentient World simulation and the digital twin that Steffers introduced us to, they know exactly the number that they're gonna produce. So here's the kind of the conclusion, guys, and the part that's not good news. And people like, what part of that so far has been good news, Matt? I hear you. Not too much, but if anybody wants to see Zara, the bad news is now that everybody is renting the movie. I don't watch the news or anything like that, but I don't know. Maybe like half the country has rented the movie at this point. They rented Action Jackson Nation. They asked for the Sinbad movie, but because of the Mandela effect, it doesn't exist anymore. And the problem is, once they get, over the next 2 or 3 or 4 months or whatever, they get close to the number they were looking for, then there's our old example of what we would go back to people and say, well, not that we can wake up anybody anyway, but we would just say well, who do you know that's sick? So that I'll talk about this at the end, guys. We have to do this now, just if there's any chance at all, which there really isn't, but we have to take one last chance. But our ability to say in a month or two, well, who do you know that's sick? Who do you know that McDeed? And the people will say, well, nobody, of course, because everybody, the renting of the Action Jackson is completely protecting everybody. So once you get most of the country having rented the movie, then you don't have to produce illness anymore. Not that, one of the things that's most mystifying to us is the fact that during all of this, we could say to Tony or Ken or whoever, people in my circles, and say, who do you know that's sick? Why do you believe all these statistics? Who do you know? Well, nobody, but see, that didn't work anyway. I agree. I give you that. It didn't work anyway. But it probably worked on a few people, but it doesn't work at all, basically, going forward now. because they would say, well, why would there be anybody sick? Almost everybody's rented the movie Action Jacksonation at this point. So if you can habituate and get people vying into that this is just ongoing, where the president of Pfizer has come out and said, I think they called it's very benign, a booster. Kids needed a booster. You need a tetanus shot, they get a booster. Oh, that's boost is millions. That's very benign. Oh, I don't. It's not like the real vac. We just need a booster. So then they habitualize to it. Everybody's just constantly getting um, getting jabbed for I don't know how many years they can keep this up. I guess if everybody's screaming at me, Matt, if they've been able to do this, they'll be able to do whatever they want to people for the rest of their lives. Yeah, I guess. Fear the Walking Dead. Yeah. So, but then once you're doing that, and people are getting a booster once a year, you don't. My argument to Tony, like, who do you know that's sick? That doesn't work anymore. Because why would there anybody be sick? We're protected, Matt. So the only thing we had, and not that it worked anyway, the only wake up tool we had goes away. Um, and I want to think, well, that's a big problem, but it's not a big problem because it didn't work anyway. It didn't work anyway. Um, but that being said, guys, before actually, if you have anybody to talk to in terms of with the type of theme that I'm talking about now would be the time to do it. Not that it's going to work. Again, nobody's going to wake up at this point. Fear the Walking Dead. But I'll say it. One last time to my father or my mother, just say, who do you know that out of all this, destruction of rights, destruction of the Bill of Rights, lockdowns have been much worse in Europe and Australia. Australia, we'll talk about that. It's incredible what's going on there. But there's been curfews here in the U.S. Gavin Newsom early on threatening people couldn't even leave their homes. Like, you can tell a U.S. citizen they can't walk outside their front door. Like there'd be anything in the Constitution that could ever back that up. But in terms of all the freedoms destroyed, I'm going to just present that one last time and just in passing and say, hey, all this stuff that destroy an entire, just completely remove people's freedom to do business. Who do you know that was sick? Who do you know that was McDeed? And again, it's not going to work, but this is our last chance to say it. All right, I guess is what I'm saying. We all at some point, I was a Matrix child and I saw how the world was operating. We all came out of it. Nobody was born with perfect insight into the truth of the world. So it's possible that there's some people on the fence that you can get them to come over. It's going to be less than 1%. But I guess because there is no opportunity to present this argument in the future, then I'll do it one more time now. Because maybe just in a few weeks, someone will say, "Well, why would there be any illness? Everybody's is protected, Matt. You're the ones that are potentially threatening us with more illness by not, we don't have to repeat that." So that's the big problem, the normalization, the habituation of which they tried, which as you look back on it, as you look back on it, this is what they attempted to the starting of the normalization of it, or the routine acceptance of it, like brushing your teeth at night. They did it with the regular flu shot because there was a progression over, say, a 15-year period where if you wanted it, you had to go get it or pay for it or get an appointment with your physician 15 years ago. It wasn't just there for you. And then it just, as the years went over as we got closer to 10 years out, then 8 years out, 5 years out, it was like just kind of there for you. Anybody that once said, oh, it's employers are giving away now for free, or your local CVS, it's free. And then they even, to get more and more people used to it, they actually, I don't know if somebody sent this to me, or I think I saw the sign a few years ago, free turkey. They give away a free turkey if you get it. This is the regular flu shot. So then they were basically trying to pay you in some way, but without cash, just like you carry out a giant butterball turkey or something if you get it. And they get as many people as you possible used to doing it. Um, and also then if you're planning this, the planning of these things, guys, this is planned, you know, 30, 40 years in advance. The script of the society is planned that far in advance. And if anybody's saying, well, Matt, then if it's planned that far in advance, then these aren't retrocausalities. Everything you're seeing in movies and TV shows, they are planting it in there. That's a good case for that, because it is planned out, that far in advance. Because you have the whole. Remember, you had the most ridiculous thing of all time was Zika. Zika. Zika, 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 Jigga, Jigga. It was that was the most ridiculous. But then you had bird, H whatever. You had avian, even Toronto SARS of, I don't know, 20 years ago. All part of the all to collect information for the sentient world simulation, in my opinion. And it's not, I'm pretty sure on that. Um, Avian, whatever. It's just nothing much happened. Bird flu. I remember. I mean, I remember. You forget the hype that was put out over these things. I remember being at my dentist's. I don't know what was the last one, bird or avian, 5, 6 years ago or so, and saying, "Are you?" I'm talking with her, saying, "Yeah, we might need to close for a few weeks here and there," because and this was just bird or avian. It wasn't even 1/100th of what they're presenting this thing to be. So each time they cook this up, they watch the tweets, they record the emails, they record and watch the posts, the likes, the thumbs down, the Facebook posts, the Reddit, the whatever. And it all goes into the sentient world simulation, and it knows, okay, next time, here's what we need to do to get this, result was, in these metrics result was great, pass. In these metrics we failed. Okay, let's run it again. And it started, I think, with SARS Toronto. Even if somebody in Toronto right now was like, not a lot of people got sick, but I knew somebody that was McDeed. Even if there's real illness, I'm not saying it's all fake. They still will use it, and they scared the world. Nothing came out of SARS Toronto 20 some years ago, but they scared the crap out of the world. It wasn't a long running story, just about 3, 4 weeks or so, but nothing was more obvious for the sentient world simulation than 3 years or so ago, 4 years, Zika. I mean, Zika was the most ridiculous thing of all time. It was a it was supposedly with a V associated with mosquitoes. That the big problem, basically the only problem, was they would create a situation or a condition called microcephaly in infants, so pregnant mothers that are bitten by the mosquito that had the Zika. The mother would give birth to I think it was the microcephaly meant shrunken head. It was like a shrunken head baby. Um, and again, maybe there probably is some truth to it. The microcephaly outbreak, mostly in Latin America, but as we looked at it for 5 minutes using inner knowing and inner truth and inner tuning forth, it was like, well, this isn't from a mosquito. It's likely from the chemicals being sprayed on crops, or a DuPont corporation, or Dow, or one of these, something like that. And then they say, well, we want to keep spraying the same thing. We'll just blame it on the mosquito. And then you look back at Zika, and the Rockefeller Foundation had a patent on it going back to the late 50s. And then they told the regular guy and gal, they said, well, yeah, it's a risk if you're going to give birth or whatever. Then that's what scared everybody. But basically, it's like, well, let's say, somebody like Matt gets it, or somebody like Greg gets it. How? It's on the news every night. I remember Scott Pelley, the Skeleton Man, presenting on the news every night about Zika cases. It was like one case in Mississippi that was like the leading story. It was like 2 or 3 months, 4 months in a row. Like you can't say just two or three because people that's a two-thirds. That's Matt dropping to 666. So I'm now conditioned. I have to every time I say 2 or 3 months, I have to add the fourth. Um, sorry. He just was the leading story on the Skeleton Man's broadcast month after month after month. And well, what happens if Matt gets it or Greg gets it? Oh, nothing. You might kind of feel like you have a mild cold for a day. That's what's causing the leading story. But then they actually convinced people. They convinced many men that now it's not just the women. If you plan on having a baby, you could then pass whatever you get the Zika 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 Zika. You could then pass it to your woman, and she could then have the shrunken head baby. So then you had people like, see, this is where I struggle. Where remember all the Olympic athletes then didn't go to the Olympics. With my favorite being to tease Rory McIlroy. Rory McIlroy, where I tease and say he didn't go to the Olympics because he was afraid of Zika 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 Zika. He was afraid, but I was relatively sure and still sure at the time that he has a womb. So he could, like Junior Schwarzenegger in the movie Junior with Danny DeVito, he could give birth to a shrunken head baby. So that's why McIlroy didn't go. But why there's other golfers that didn't go, and there here we struggle with are these people so close to the back table, or like Tiger has probably been served a few times by Jared. They're so close to the creepy table that they're in on it, and they're told like, you're not to go to the Olympics, or are they whether they're not going to totally be in on it. They're never going to be near the back room table. These moron athletes, of course, but are they? The point is, was Rory McIlroy really scared, and it was his decision not to go to the Olympics, or it kind of smells. I don't know. I'm going both ways on this because these people like a Rory McIlroy would be so easily. I think I can hear somebody screaming at me, Matt. It's both. See, an entity like Rory McIlroy, mind controlled or whatever, he could be easily convinced through his handlers. So it is his decision, but see, it's not his decision. He was convinced not to go because he's easily manipulated. See, but it was his decision. That's most likely. Yeah. Again, he's not. Again, I don't. They're not even George Bush. George W., the president of the United States, wasn't even close to getting into the back room, in my opinion. He just played with his matchbox outside the door. So of course, a jerk like McElroy is not going to have any. He's not going to know what's going on. So, but they were the Olympic athletes that didn't go, and then some of the women like was it was it the famous soccer goalie for the United States didn't go to Brazil, or several women didn't go, but that was probably legitimate because the news for months convinced people that one bite of this mosquito thing, and you can have a shrunken head baby, Rosemary's Baby. So again, the point of Zika was simply for the sentient world simulation, in my opinion, for what's happening now. All of this stuff is just a minor drop in the bucket to collect information as to what is happening now, like Ender's Game. In the end of, I'm sorry, it is a spoiler alert, but it's not right for everybody, and I don't have any problem with spoilers if a movie's like over 5 years old. I'll just, if you want to go away, 30 seconds. I'll be 30 seconds if you want to mute this. The end of Ender's Game, where he's coordinating the troops against the alien world, he thinks it's a giant simulation, and he thinks it's their last simulation before the real battle, but it's the real fight. And of course, he would be so nervous and whatever. They put him in the real battle, and they just called it a simulation. He's directing all his troops virtually, robots and things like that. So all of these other, all of these, I won't say anything else about the movie Ender's Game, but all of these other trial runs, whether there was real illness or not, it's just been to collect data for what's going on now, or not, or the rollout, the final, this is the final push to put the world into a certain place. Again, part of the truth community that is still yelling about wanting to kill huge numbers of the population. I don't know where these people are getting this stuff. Like there's no evidence they ever needed to do that, ever wanted to do that. I always take shit on this. Obviously, if they feed off of the human population, loosh and energy, why are they constantly putting us into anxiety, worry, creating stress in our life? They feed off of it. Of course, they do in some way. Got to kill off 1 billion people, and then people will say, "What are the?" They'll actually point me to the Georgia Guidestones. That happened last time I talked about this. Like somebody carving something in a stone. No, that just reveals everything as to what the Illuminati control center and and the Chernobyl windows are going to do. It's just like somebody carved something in a stone, and that's just there you go, Matt. What else do you need to say? Like, what is wrong with people? There's no evidence of it, and it never has been. So the evidence of the tremendous overwhelming evidence is they want to devolve a human being into something down here where potentially, whether it be in our lifetime or the lifetimes of our grandparents, where a human being was this or capable of this or spiritually this, or what the Mayans were with their calendar, or the ancient civilizations. It's a constant, incredibly patient over millennia process to devolve a human being down to something. I mean that the evidence of that, oh, overwhelming, hundreds of thousands of pieces of evidence that oh, the evidence that they just want to kill everybody off, no evidence, but I believe that. What? So they devolve a human being ultimately down to where they choose to doom themselves. This is crystal clear. That's where all the evidence is, and that's where you get along this V. Whether it be on one end of the spectrum, nano 7 of 9 Borg nanoparticulates going in, or it's simply nothing. It's nothing but a symbolic gesture, a bending of the knee, where one chooses to doom themselves. Okay, there could be nothing in the damn thing. But this is where, if it is on that side, first of all, the only thing I'm interested in protecting is my spiritual essence, connection to spiritual self, higher self, a way out of here, at death or whatever. I don't care about anybody telling me about. I'm not going to get it. I have to say that, of course, like people don't know. I'm not going to get it, of course. But this gets into that Danny Mindley video where he was saying, and I was backing him up, kind of saying, if you are a nurse and you're going to have to do it, and you're a mother of two, and it's like, do I want to keep my job with full benefits? One of my kids has special needs, $80,000 a year, benefits for my kids, or go out into a cardboard box. Danny was saying, and I'm saying there's a possibility that it's not just whatever they're going to put. If you believe you're a powerful being, whatever they're going to put in a damn, I don't know if I can say it, whatever the thing, like a plastic thing with a pointy thing on the end. I don't know how many times can I say something before I get a banner ad or banned. They can't. If you're a powerful being, they're going to be able to just doom your soul to Tartarus because of one little jab. That doesn't resonate with anybody, does it? It's all about it's likely more about them, you dooming yourself. Like it's a bending of the knee before the system. There could be nothing in it, potentially. I know I don't want all the Dr. C lecture now about RNA and DNA and all the reactions in the human immune system. All of that is on the table. I don't know what's in the thing. Just go with this for this part of the conversation. Because ultimately, when I've studied the creeps and how they do business, it's always about, ultimately, they want the human being to make the decisions to screw themselves, to Horcrux themselves off, to cut the spiritual ties themselves. I've always said, if they come in and throw me down on a table and inject me with whatever, or cut my spiritual ties, I've won. I've won at that point. Because, and they know that, because then it's out. They've taken the choice away. So there could be Borg 7 of 9 nano things in this. There could be nothing in it, and anything in between. And if you, and so that if, and hopefully it's there's not nothing, there's not very much in it, then it becomes down to intention. And if you are a nurse and you have two special needs kids and you have to get it to keep your job, then I think you would be able to overcome its ability to doom yourself through intention by saying, they've forced me into this. I have kids, I have special needs, I have to do this, whatever. So it's not, I'm not going to go do it, guys. But I don't want to. I do have issues. These truth channels, like, oh, you get the action Jacksonation. Your soul's doomed. Or just really, is it that simple? Is it going to be that simple to a powerful being, a lowly Schmiegel being who doesn't believe they're connected to anything spiritually, anything of true power, of anything of true essence? Would say, oh yeah, put one little vial of something in me, and my soul's doomed. What? Think of the powerful beings in mythology or even your own religion or whatever. Be injected with something and it's just like, what do you just shrug it off? I mean, I'm saying it just, guy, it's not that simple. It's not that simple. Okay? It probably is as simple where if they can get you to believe that if you get rent the action Jacksonation, you're dooming your soul, and you believe that, then you'll do that. Manifest it on yourself. See how it works? That's generally how the reality works. They need you to take the reins on what ultimately will happen to you. You lead your team of dogs through the Iditarod. It will guide you, but ultimately you've got to take the reins yourself and doom yourself. So guys, it's just from me studying it and looking at it for 10 years, studying how it does business, how it puts forward its deception, how it constantly creates a human buy-in. So anyway, I guess there's not much else to say. Um, it's pretty clear looking back what how the plan was, how they did it and pulled it off, and going forward, um, it will be floating the idea of there's just enough people like Matt or like you that won't do it. Will convince everybody that they're making they're people like Matt are making it unsafe. People like Matt make it so we can't get rid of the infrastructure, the testing and the tracing and the tracking and the passports and the showing your phone. And then but then they also want that. It just led me to think of something. They also would want that constant confusion and aggravation, so then they could put the chip under the skin. I mean, again, think of their long range plan is not 2, 3, or 4 years out. It's 50 years out. It's 50 years out. And if they're, you can almost get into their mindset. If they're sitting in that back room, some of the creeps, and there was that Plantronic speakerphone. Is the interdimensional being from hell on the line yet? Oh, yeah. Okay, put the universal translator on. I don't understand that. Jared, coffee. The interdimensional being from hell is with us. Okay, now we can start. So see, first presentation from Shallow Hal here, saying, well, we have to make the medical passport a real aggravation as well, because you'd be like, we have to get people in the state like, oh my gosh, I've got to show this thing again, and then the app will go down from time to time. It's like, it's the Super Bowl, I've got tickets, so you're not letting me in because my app doesn't work or I can't get Wi-Fi here. All sorts of confusion and problems and forgetting your password, and so then people are like, ooh, we can solve all these issues. Are you tired of having to show your phone to do everything? Just put it under the skin. Put it under the skin. And no, then you have no more issues, we promise. But then once that seems like the end all be all mark of the beast. But then no, they'll have something else planned. Then they'll have something go wrong with that. Here, you want to get into the Super Bowl? Put your hand. What do you mean my chip isn't working? Oh, you can't get in the Super Bowl, sir. Well, how do I? Well, I'll tell you what. Just download your whole essence, your whole consciousness into the computer. You'll never have the issue again. This chip under the skin is a real hassle. They'll have the next phase of a human being dooming itself planned out. It's not whatever is planning this out for what a human being is to devolve into. And if any, yeah, Christians will be yelling at me, and it absolutely fits the mold of the traditional depiction of Satan, no doubt. But then I would say, well, where do you think the traditional depiction of Satan came from? I could say it on the other side. Where do you think that came from? The dark force is here either way, no matter what exactly it is, or no matter how you think it fits into the Bible. So, but I hear you. I hear you. Um, it is it is exactly how it does business. But that doesn't mean it's the chicken and the egg. Um, the depiction of Satan could exist because of a understanding of exactly how it does business. You understand? So either way, um, but it's no the truth community. I'll say it one last time. It's just incredible to me how I'm. I don't. I'm gonna say that I'm not gonna say I'm the only one, but I'm one of the only ones in this wing of the truther asylum community that always goes to say supernatural means beyond a human's ability. Reality buttons and levers with that mean. Bring in the Mandela effect whenever possible. Most of the truth community is still are just analyzing everything per the means that they understand. I just it's how many reality breakdowns do you need to see where you have to be forced to go away from that? You know, I mean, I don't want to get into any specifics, but I would say if you're watching the Truth Channel for how many years, and everything is always about explaining it in ways that we were just inside the bookends of what we think known reality is, and they just never go outside. I mean, I don't see how that would be for any big thinker. We've seen too many. We've seen utter and complete reality breakdowns, hundreds at this point, thousands potentially. And if you're Mandela affected, again, it's all you need to see. I don't need to convince you of anything. Once you see a portion of your reality, just you wake up and it's just different from what you know, then I don't need to convince those people of anything. And for people that think their Mandela effect is a psyop or whatever, I mean, come on. We all bring different things to the table. I'm well aware that maybe 70, 80% of you listening to this don't see it at all. It's okay. It's okay. You probably bring something to the table or an insight that I can't understand, or who knows why Matt is. I'm not saying I think the Mandela effect exists, or I'd like to convince you of it. I know. I've told you before. It's as do you know your mother's maiden name? Um, Most people do. Now, if I showed you every birth certificate in the world, if I showed you your own mother in a recording from 1975 saying it was Smith and something it was, do you know what it has always been? And could I convince you otherwise? No matter what evidence, here's paperwork, and here's your own mother saying it. Well, yeah, the reality itself will reflect. If you go back to the initial birth records, the reality itself will have changed. The reality itself will have reflect a different. But you know inside you what your mother's maiden name is. You know, if you have your first dog or cat, do you know the color of it? Well, every bit of evidence now shows it was white. You wouldn't. You would you be like, yeah, I think I got it wrong. Oh yeah, I could have made a mistake with the color of my dog. For he was here with me for 10 years, and I loved him more than anything. But yeah, it was a psyop. No, you would know. It's that simple. If you're not Mandela affected, you're not Mandela affected. So what? It's not a psyop. So I've said it many times. In these areas, over the last 10 years, Matt has brought forth a certain insight. I don't plop something out once a week, but once every 6 months, I I think I've generally done a good job moving this community forward in terms of saying, yeah, that wait a second, we've never really considered that. So in these areas, people would say I've done a pretty good job over a 10-year period. But in this Mandela effect thing, he's completely falling for it. It's amazing how he's just falling for the psyop over here. If you want to believe that, go ahead. You can't see it, you can't see it. It's okay. It's okay. But we have what's called anchor effects, where it's like just like your mother's maiden name. You know, not 99% are pretty sure, 100% what something was in the past, and there isn't a shred of evidence that exists anymore. And anyway, sorry about the Mandela effect closing, but it was kind of somewhat relevant. All right, guys. After all that, I hope this loads. If not, you know, one more thing on YouTube that shut down free speech, and it will be 100% free voice. Bye bye.